Hi, so I've been asked by loads of people to do a video on Starlite. Starlite is this supposed wonder material that came out a few years ago and went absolutely nowhere. And what it does is forms a heat shield, so a thin layer of starlight can be put on your hand and you can turn a blowtorch on it. The starlight will burn away and your hand will be perfectly okay, which is really cool, I suppose, in a way. But what Starlite is basically an intumescent material, and there are lots of intumescent materials kicking around, and some of them far better than Starlite. I mean, paper will do the same kind of job. So if I get a stack of paper and I turn a blowtorch on here, I can put my hand behind it, nothing's going to happen. What will happen is that the layers of paper will burn off gradually. Now, as they burn off, of course, it's going to get hotter. But for that per moment in time, when my hand is there and the depth of burn off isn't great enough, I'm going to be protected. Now, the reason that happens is this first layer carbonizes. And as it carbonizes, then it becomes heat protective. Then the next layer carbonizes and the next layer and so on. And that's pretty much what Starlite does. Now, Starlite is a basic recipe of flour, cornstarch, sugar and baking soda. What happens when you get a heat applied to it is that the baking soda breaks down into carbon dioxide, causes bubbles in the melted sugar, and you get this layer of carbon bubbles. And of course the carbon bubbles are burning away, but they're extremely insulating, as insulating as paper actually. But they're extremely insulating. They take a little while to burn away. As they burn away, the next layer bubbles up, and so on. Now, you could improve Starlite by adding things like borax to it would be really good. Sodium silicate would be another really good thing to add, and they would make improvements to Starlite. The interest in Starlite, as far as I'm concerned, is not so much to do with its intumescent qualities, of which, like I say, there are some great stuff kicking around. There's an intumescent paint that's very similar. You put a paint coat on, you turn a blowtorch onto it, the paint will do exactly the same thing as Starlite or as the ream of paper that we looked at, and it'll protect what's underneath. Incidentally, wood actually is very similar. We think of wood as something that will burn, but actually it does something very similar. The little cells of wood burn first, protecting the wood behind it. Given enough time, of course it will burn through, but then so will Starlite. The protection it gives is not forever, it's only for the period of time it takes that carbon to burn off and the next layer of carbon to form and burn off until it gets through to whatever it's trying to protect. What's interesting about Starlite, as far as I'm concerned, is the story behind Starlite. Starlite was the invention of this guy who was so paranoid about people nicking his idea. I suppose he watched that thing about the window wiper. You know the film where the guy invents the window wiper and terrible corporations steal his idea, make millions, and he makes nothing, takes them all to court, and he wins. It's a common belief that we have, and it's a very common fear amongst inventors. Inventors are terrified that somebody's going to steal their idea. And so he was exactly the same, and he was so cantankerous about the whole thing, he refused so much to let people actually do it, that any deal that he was in just fell through. He did things like they couldn't have a sample, and if he had a sample he had to be there, and he took the sample away with him and all that sort of stuff. And people got basically fed up. Now, it reminds me of a friend of mine. Now, a friend of mine actually owns a graphite mine. This graphite mine has had about $1 billion worth of graphite in it. He owns a quarter. He's got about $250 million of graphite. The main problem with it is it's still in the ground. So in order to get that out, he's got to spend something like $250–300 million to get out about $1 billion. He doesn't have that kind of money. So he has to go to other people to help, to find help to dig this stuff out. And of course, while the graphite is in the ground, it's completely worthless. You can't do anything with it. You have to dig it out for it to have some value. And it's the same with Starlite. It has no value if you sit on it. It only has value if you can sell it and it's being bought. And in order to sell something and have people buy it, you have to be prepared to share. And that's the thing about a lot of people. They're so terrified they're going to get stolen, then they don't take minimum protections and they don't have the preparedness to share. And you have to share. If you share and find yourself decent people, which is obviously a real challenge, then you can turn something into value. So the value of the story of Starlite is how the guy behaved to make Starlite worthless. Now, he was in talks with BA. I think it was BA. It was some of the space research thing. And the talks collapsed, and not long after, that same company came out with a patent. And of course, everybody was saying he stole his idea. Chances are he didn't. Actually, intumescent materials are pretty well understood, as is the mechanism. It's really just a method of finding the things that will do that job, and that's just a matter of hard work. So chances are they liked the idea, he showed it as a possibility, and they went off and did their own research. That's highly likely. But even now, you can't get the recipe. I think the guy took it to his grave, basically. And that, to me, is really the only interesting thing about Starlite. Like I say, Starlite itself, intumescent material, ton of them around, some far better than Starlite these days because the research has been done in it. The interesting thing about it is the moral of the story. The moral of the story is don't be so afraid that you don't share. The thing only has value if you can turn it into a product. Having the dream of a product has no value whatsoever. You have to make it, you have to sell it, and then it has real value. So be prepared to share. Of course, you do need to protect yourself. Nobody's saying you don't. You do need not to be silly with people because there are idiots around there. But unless you're prepared to share, you can guarantee however wonderful your invention is, it's going to be worthless. Anyway, I thought I'd share those ideas with you on Starlite, mostly because I can't be bothered to make the stuff because it is so well known and other people have done such stuff on it and its properties are well understood that I really couldn't be bothered doing it. But I did like the moral of the story and I thought I would share that with you. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video too. Sorry if you were expecting me to do some Starlite experiments, but thank you very much for watching.